If I was to ask you the question of what you thought the coolest car in the world was, what would you think? Now, we're not talking about the best looking, the fastest, the most expensive, the most exclusive, the coolest. In other words, a car that if you rocked up on a date or to, outside a pub or a wine bar or a restaurant or a car event, people would just look at you and nod approvingly because you clearly had exceptional taste. Well, I don't think it's an Aston Martin DB5, if I'm honest with you, because I think the Bond cliche is, well, a bit cliched now. And it's not the Lamborghini Miura, my own personal bucket list car, because it's a bit too in your face, a bit too flamboyant, a bit too aging 70s rocker. It's not the Mini or the 2CV or the Renault 4 or any other little utilitarian car that the world has taken to its heart. No. I think it's this. It's this, the Porsche 356 Speedster. I mean, look at it. How cool does this look? And it's one of those cars that looks fantastic, whether it's in resplendent condition like this or a little bit beaten and battered. In fact, it almost adds a little bit to the coolness. And of course, it's been the star of the silver screen. Laurie Petty drove one in Point Break. Kelly McGillis in Top Gun. Christopher Lambert in Highlander. Michael J. Fox in Doc Hollywood. All the great movies. Except this isn't a classic Porsche 356 Speedster. It's actually brand new. It's not even a Porsche. And it's electric. Welcome to another episode of Electric Icons. Welcome to the Chesil Speedster E. And of course, as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we go on to this episode of Electric Icons and a review of the Chesil Speedster Electric, it is of course that time when I ask you to subscribe to the AutoEV channel, like the videos, and make sure you press the little bell button that's down below so you're notified of when the next video goes live. Now, if you've been a subscriber and a supporter of us so far, thank you ever so much. If you're new to us, please consider becoming a subscriber, because by doing so, you help us remain independent and bring you great content like this. So, the Chesil Speedster Electric. Have you ever seen a more kind of juxtaposition shot than this? A classic Porsche sports car parked next to a brand new fast charger for electric cars. But don't be fooled, because this is not an old Porsche 356 that's been converted to electric. This is a ground up build by Chesil, which is part of the Westfield Sports Car Group. Now, we'll come on to a little bit later, but Chesil basically started back in 1991 and became quickly renowned as one of the best sort of like companies for 356 replica kits. It went through changes of ownership and management, and before being acquired by Westfield Group back in 2018. And now they're offering this, a brand new ground up electric Speedster. So I'm here with Simon Westwood, Managing Director of Westfield Sports Cars and Chesil, obviously, and obviously part of the Westfield Technology Group. Correct. Now, explain to us how this car came about. How did the Chesil Speedster Electric come about? What was the whole ethos behind it?
The driving force for us for buying Chesil Motor Company, which we bought in late 2019, was that we sat around a table and we looked at the future, the fact that electric cars are coming, whether we like it or not. We looked at our own portfolio, and although we've got lots of electric vehicles within that portfolio, the pod, we're doing some other stuff with airside movement, we hadn't got something that, as a general car, that we could sell as a kit or we could build that worked brilliantly with electric to start with. So we sat around a table, we decided, and we looked at other products out there, and Chesil came to the top of the list of everybody that was around that table, decided that they would like to own at some point a Chesil Speedster, and if it was electric, then it would be great. Our Westfield range is a bit more involved in petrol engines. We are doing electric vehicles for that, and we're working on that as we speak, but this was the first car that we decided that we wanted to electrify, and it suits electric perfectly. You've just driven it.
Yeah, now you were saying earlier as well, because when you first took on the Chesil brand, this is a very different car underneath to those original Westfields. So there's obviously quite a lot of engineering going into that. So explain briefly what you've done with that.
So before we bought the Chesil company, we bought a Chesil, and we went about having that converted from its original petrol source to electric. Now that took a while to come through, and then when it eventually came through, we all drove it, and it felt like a converted car that was petrol, and now it's electric. and that's not what we wanted. So we started again, we did a ground up redesign, so we wanted to design a chassis that we could put the batteries where we wanted them, so that it wouldn't affect handling too much, and the size of the battery. So it was really start again, clean sheet of paper, new chassis. Whilst we're doing a new chassis, let's bring it up to date. Let's put independent suspension all round, let's put disc brakes all round, let's get rid of the steering system from a Beetle, which is woolly to be the best. You know, we're looking at 1970s cars. Let's put a proper steering rack on it. Let's put coilover dampers so you can adjust the damping on the car. Should you want it harder or softer? Should you want to raise the car a little bit? Should you want to have it lower for that a little bit more aggressive look? So that's where that started, and that's what you've driven today. Going forward, we've also incorporated that new chassis design to take petrol engine cars as well.
Okay, right. Okay.
So our future production will also be with that new chassis, and that is not just to design. That's through the fact that we can control production, we can control our volumes. You know, there are only so many Volkswagen Beetles in the world. There are only so many you can get today and tomorrow and the day after. And we didn't want to come to the point whereas our volumes were dictated by what we could get from a used Beetle. So this means we're in control of our own destiny, and our production levels are what we decide, not where our supply chain decides.
Now, the other thing that I found quite interesting what you're saying is in terms of, because you can buy this as a kit and do it yourself, which I think is fantastic. I mean, is it literally like kind of plug and play stuff?
So
if you went down that route?
Yeah, so it's a complete kit. The body all comes pre-assembled, pre-painted. The chassis is a roller, so you could put wheels on it and roll it. The only thing that you can't do from home is connect all the electricity up. That needs to come back to us and needs to be done by our specialists here at the factory in a special area of our factory. So yeah, we are the only people in the world that currently offers a complete kit that's got electric power.
But you're saying that you're finding customers for the Chesil is very different to the Westfield. They tend to go more for the actual fully built car from here.
So the percentage of factory built cars over kits for Chesil is complete opposite to Westfield. And that's nice for a business because it means we're covering both avenues. But I think as we progress more with the Chesil E, I mean, it's still relatively new for us, and especially in areas where you can't theoretically build or bring in or import a fully built car like the US. I think the market there is kit form. Now, whether that's assembled by our dealer out there into complete car or whether that's assembled by the customer. But there is a market for it, and we just need to push that market.
I mean, the whole thing, as I said to you, just feels the quality of the build is phenomenal. I mean, I can't go over it. I mean, you know, the factory built feeling with the car is something that it doesn't feel even low volume. It feels like a really well engineered car, and you can feel the whole quality, the engineering just kind of shine through in it. So it's quite something. You've managed to bring an electric car into this sort of thing.
Our technical and engineering team, I think, have done a wonderful job with this car. It's perhaps took a little bit longer than we anticipated, and I think that may be due to the fact that over the last 2 years things have been a bit difficult. Supply chain is still an issue for us on certain aspects, but you know, they've done a tremendous job, and there's lots of hours gone into this, and it is phenomenal. Everybody who's driven the car so far has loved it. We've got plenty of orders for it, and I think, you know, we're only just touching. Bear in mind, this was only finished sort of September last year. So we did a few events with it last year, but we didn't get many people in it last year, whereas come March, April this year, when the weather starts to get nice and warm, it was cool today when you drove the car, I think it will be a much easier sell, and we've got quite a handful of people who are ready to have a test drive, and we've got people booked in, you know, nearly every week to drive this car.
And are you finding the people that are buying it are already electric car owners, or are they quite new to the electric thing and they're open-minded when they come to this? I
think a majority of people who've bought the car are existing electric car owners, because they are already sold on the electric idea. We have a few new customers who wanted, and this is where we fit, they wanted something that was green and it was the right thing to do, but they also wanted something that was quite retro and stylish. And you know, I think whereas most electric car manufacturers have gone for a new wave look, something very ultra modern and you know, touchscreen display and all that sort of stuff, which is fabulous for your everyday car, this is a weekend toy. And it doesn't need that information. Or you can get it from a phone rather than have it visual. You want it to look like a 1957 Porsche. And you know, that's what this is about. It's very much a 1950s car. if you look at it in detail, there are no modern parts to it. Everything that's modern is tucked away and hidden.
Absolutely, yeah.
And again, the brief for this car was that it needs to look like a petrol one. Yeah. There are no differences, and the only difference is you can not see an exhaust on this car where you can on the standard car. I think the rest of it they've done pretty well with.
And what's the future for this sort of technology of a drivetrain in terms of the rest of the cars that you have?
So the motor and the batteries, although packaged slightly different, the batteries, but the content of the batteries we'll use throughout our range.
Right.
So that'd be a Westfield Sport. We've also got an electric Westfield 11. So we are looking for the future that, you know, we don't want to wake up in 2030 and realise that we haven't got a business because we've done no development. You know, we want to be at the forefront of that electronic technology. Yeah. You know, there are other speedster manufacturers around the world that do an electric version of it, but not the same way that we do, not a ground-up redesign. They're converting Beetle chassis cars by putting Hyper 9 motors and used Tesla batteries. But that's where we started, and that's not what we wanted. So this is exactly what it says on the tin. It is a ground-up redesign, incorporating lots of development and engineering that we've had in Westfield for over 30 years. And so we know it works.
Yeah, and as I said to you, I think that's what shines through. You can really tell that it's a ground-up car.
Yeah, you've driven a Westfield before. Yeah. So the principle, although you've got a weight penalty over a Westfield in this car, and it's not designed to be a track car.
No.
But, you know, it's designed to be an enthusiast car that will enjoy the driving experience as much as looking at the car.
Well, as I say, I think it's a phenomenal piece of kit. I really do. I think you've done an amazing job with it, and I genuinely was blown away by the quality of it. So, you know, thanks ever so much for letting me up here to drive.
No problem.
Today.
And I think a lot of thanks goes to our engineering team who designed this and spend a lot of time and effort involved in you know, a ground-up redesign. Yes, the body and the interior, but everything else on this car realistically is a new component.
Yeah. Well, this future's certainly bright for the company if this is the type of product.
Yeah, no, it is good. Phenomenal. It is very good, and we'll start deliveries of production cars over the next month or two.
Perfect. Thanks ever so much, Simon.
No problem. Thank you.
Now, of course, it's a 356 Speedster, so the motor is mounted at the back, exactly where you'd expect to find it. And that's putting out an equivalent of 160 brake horsepower to the rear wheels. But bear in mind, the whole car only weighs 950 kilograms. So it's quite sprightly, and with 235 pounds-foot of torque available, what you've got is a 0 to 60 time in just over 4 seconds. But the way the car drives is what impresses me. The power delivery is beautifully progressive. It doesn't just immediately light the tyres up and just throw you down the road. It feels, and I keep saying this, but it feels like a quality piece of engineering. It feels like it was always meant to have this. It's brilliant. Now, the Speedster is fitted with a 44 kilowatt hour battery, and that is split into 3 different packs. There's one at the front and there's 2 at the rear for better weight distribution. The car will take a fast charge. CCS charging is going to become online as standard very, very shortly, and that will go up to a 65% charge in just 25 minutes. From your 7 kilowatt wall box, charging from 20% to 100% full is done in just over 5 hours. So this is the chassis of the Chesil Speedster. Now, Simon said, instead of using a cut-down Beetle chassis, this is exactly what they've got. It's a steel space frame, now onto which is laid a hand-laid GRP body shell with its own integrated subframe chassis. Now, what that means basically is, if supply chain issues arise, you don't have to wait to complete the body. If there's an issue with the chassis, you can carry on with the body, you can paint it, you can trim it, you can fit all the electrics, and that is then bolted onto this chassis itself. You've got unequal length double wishbones all around the car. The car is also fitted with disc brakes and a proper steering rack rather than a steering box, which would have come off an old Beetle. So it is technology and sort of like sports car manufacturing that they've seen from the Westfields that's gone into the Chesils. And by goodness me, can you tell when you drive the car. So how does the Chesil Speedster drive? Well, in a word, brilliantly. It's so well engineered. I mean, you can really tell this isn't a classic car that's been converted to be electric. It is a ground-up EV, and it feels it. I mean, you'd expect it from a company like Westfield, who have been making brilliant sports cars for decades now, and they're applying that to the Chesil brand. You have a single motor mounted obviously at the rear, driving the rear wheels, that puts out 160 horsepower and 235 pounds-feet of torque. Now, in a car that weighs around about 900, 950 kilos, that makes for quite a sprightly little sports car. 0 to 60 time is just over 4 seconds, but it's not really about that. It's the immediacy, it's the intimacy of the drive that feels brilliant. This is a brand new chassis. This is not an old Beetle chassis like they used to do with the petrol engine cars. It's an aluminium floor and a steel space frame chassis underneath that. You've got unequal length double wishbones all round. It's got disc brakes all round. It's got a steering rack, not a steering box like the old Chesils used to have. It feels like a brand new car, which is odd because you're driving what is essentially, looks-wise, a 1950s Porsche. The steering's unassisted and it feels all the better for it. There's an immediacy to it, this lovely wood-rimmed Motorlita steering wheel, and it's just immediate. As soon as you turn, you just get absolute response from it. The throttle response is brilliant, and of course coupled with the sort of the immediate power delivery that you get from an electric motor, the performance is fantastic. It never fails. I mean, it's a cold January day and look at me, I am smiling like an idiot. This is wonderful. I love this car. The brakes are unassisted as well. It's discs all round, but they're unassisted, and it's just really nice. Now, Chesil will build in regen depending obviously on what the customer is looking for. So if they want more regen than it actually has, than standard, they can dial that in. If you want less, you want it to cost more, then you can dial it back. And they were saying sort of like Tesla owners who have bought these prefer more regen, whereas others prefer less. And I have to say, the standard setup that they've got on their car feels about right to me. It's just nice. You lift off, there's just that little bit there, it's nice. I'm sat in heated seats. You've got heated seats. Buttons are all tucked underneath the dashboard, so the look is as classic as you'd expect a 356 Speedster to look. I've got this aluminium kind of gear lever here, but it's simple to just forward to make the car go forward and pull it back to make it go in reverse, and that's it. It's brilliant. You know, pitching it into a bend, as I say, you've got this lovely feedback that you get from the steering, this unassisted steering. I love it. I absolutely love this car. The driving position's good. I mean, I'm quite short, as you know, but obviously taller drivers are going to be over the top of the screen. But that's a 356 Speedster for you. That's what you have to endure with that, I'm afraid. It's about right for me, although I kind of wish I'd maybe worn a hat today, or maybe a pair of gloves. The screen itself is actually heated too, and I've got heated seats and a 356 Speedster. Brilliant. The thing that really strikes you about the car is the quality. It feels so well engineered. Everything just feels proper. There's a heft to the controls. There's a quality to the build of the car. You know, the controls, all these kind of milled aluminium controls, and the painted dashboard and the leather work inside it. That's the thing that really strikes you when you get in it. There's a tiny little bit of shake from the steering column, but nothing that would really nothing that would put you off, and nothing that you don't think is, you know, dare I suggest, acceptable in a car like this. You drive any of these style of cars and there's going to be an element of, you know, an element of hand build to them, and that's what you get with this, and it's absolutely fine. The car just feels right. If I've got one slight criticism, and that's just the kind of floor hinge pedals. They're slightly too upright. I could do with them being slightly maybe farther away, or maybe I take the seat back a touch. You just got a slightly better driving position. They're quite awkward. The pedal box just feels a little bit awkward, but Nothing that would put you off. Nothing that stops you smiling. The unassisted brakes feel fantastic. There's a really nice pedal feel to the car. And as I say, the quality of the engineering just comes through in all of the controls. I see the steering's geared just beautifully. The pedal feel is just right. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. The motor's take-up is quite something. You really notice it. Again, it's, as I say, it's a quality of the engineering that's in it that feels right. And the other thing that feels good about the car is the suspension. This is not an uncomfortable car to drive at all. It's unequal length double wishbones all round with coilover dampers. And they just feel, it feels like the setup is just absolutely right. They've got the sort of the balance of handling poise and comfort bang on, I think. Just feels wonderful. Now, as Simon says, you can buy this as a kit, and if you do that, then it's going to come in at just over £66,500 for you then to complete yourself. If, however, you're a little bit like me and you don't know which end of a screwdriver goes where, then you'll want a factory build one. And prices for that start from just over £73,000. The car I've been driving today is fitted with a few options, and that comes in at just over £77,500, which is, without doubt, an awful lot of money. But it is an awful lot of car and an awful lot cool. So what does the future have in store for a car like the Chesil Speedster? Well, I think its existence needs to be absolutely celebrated. And what's really, really interesting, as I say, as we keep coming back to, is the quality of the car's build. There's not many small sort of like cottage industry car manufacturers that can claim to have sort of like the technology available immediately to build a car like this. Morgan have indicated that there is an EV in the future, and of course Lotus have the might of Geely behind them, not to mention their checkbook. But apart from showing the big Evija supercar, we've yet to see anything from them. The fact that this car exists at all is testament to the quality of the engineering department and design departments and the construction guys here at Westfield. So, what is our verdict on the new Chesil Speedster Electric? Well, I can sum up in 2 words. It's bloody brilliant. You just cannot get an impression of the quality of this car until you drive it. The immediacy of the performance, the balance to the chassis, the weighting of the controls, just the balance of the steering and the throttle progression. It feels like a proper, well-designed little sports car. The fact that it's electric just future-proofs it for me. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, this is the coolest electric car that you can buy today. Thank you for watching AutoEV. As always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel and press the little bell button down below to receive notification of when our next video goes live. If you're already a subscriber, thank you for your continued support. And please remember, we are on all other social media channels. But until next time, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.